Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to take a look at the grade 10 November 2024 paper 2. Question number 1, a Marshall recorded the amount of data in megabytes that she had used daily in the past 15 days. We've been given the data and question 1.1 says calculate the range of the data. So to calculate the range, that's going to equal the difference between the maximum value and the minimum value. So the maximum value is 45. The minimum is 3, and so the range is 42. Question 1.2, calculate the mean data. So the average is going to equal the sum of all of these data points. And if we had to sum up all of these data points, we're going to get 356. So 356 divided by 15. And that's equal to 23,73. Question 1.3. Write down the 5-number summary of the data. Now the 5-number summary consists of the minimum value, the Q1, the Q2, the Q3, and the maximum value. We know the minimum and the maximum from question 1.1. So 3 and 45. To calculate Q2, we can use the formula n plus 1 divided by 2. There's 15 data points, so plus 1 divided by 2, that gives us 8. So we're looking for the 8th data point. So if I have to number the data that I have here, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. The 8th data point is 18. So Q2 is equal to 18. Now to calculate the value of Q1, what we need to do is to focus on this first half here. So from here to here, we have 7 data points. So the middle of the 7 data points is going to be the 4th data point. So that's going to be here. So Q1 is going to be 13. Because on this side you have 3 and on this side you have 3. And likewise, to calculate or to find Q3, you look at these 7 data points here. The 12th one is going to be Q3. So Q3 is going to equal 40. And we can confirm this because we have 3 data points here and 3 data points there. So Q1, Q2, and Q3 ensures, or basically what it does is it divides the whole data set into percentiles, 25 or the 25th percentile, or quarters if you will. It divides it into quarters. You have the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. Question 1.4, draw a box and whisker diagram. Now when you draw a box and whisker diagram, you need to use a number line. So the number line here, I'm going to go 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. So minimum is 3, so somewhere there. Maximum is 45, so somewhere there. Q1 is 13, so that's going to be part of the box. Q2 is 18, that's also going to be part of the box. And Q3 is 40, that's going to be part of the box. So if I join Q1, Q2, and Q3, that's going to be the box. The whiskers then are going to be the minimum and maximum. Question 1.5, determine the interquartile range IQR. That's equal to Q3 minus Q1. Q3 was 40, Q1 was 13, and that's equal to 27. The company Health Crazy conducted a survey at a gym in KwaZulu-Natal to find out which age group most frequently used their health supplements. Okay, so 2.1, identify the modal class for the data. Modal class is the interval that has the highest frequency, and that's going to be the first one, so x between 20 and 30. Question 2.2, determine the interval in which the median lies. So the median is the middle term. So in order to figure this out, we need to first figure out how many people were surveyed. So to calculate that, we simply need to add up all of these values. So to add this up, we're going to say 29 plus 28 plus 21 plus 15 plus 12, and that's equal to 105. So there are 105 data points. And we want to figure out what is the median being the middle. So 105 plus 1 divided by 2. So we're looking for the 53rd data point. So again, to calculate median, which is Q2, we're going to say n plus 1 over 2, 105 plus 1 divided by 2, which is 53rd position. So now we need to do a cumulative frequency. So cumulative frequency simply means a running total. So 29 will be here. And then if we add 28 to 29, 28 plus 29 is 57. So after totaling up the second age group, we have a total of 57 people. We're looking for the 53rd person. So the 53rd person must be in this range or in that interval. So the median is going to lie in the interval x is between 30 and 40. Question 2.3, estimate the mean age group of the people that use health supplements. Now to calculate the estimated mean from a table, there's actually a few steps that we need to do. One being, we need to calculate the midpoint first, and we need to then multiply it by the frequency. So let me just make a note. So we need the midpoints of the intervals. We then need to do the midpoint times the frequency, and then we'll do midpoint times frequency divided by total. So that's step 1, that's step 2, that's step 3. So let's do the midpoints. So the middle of 20 and 30 is 25. Then this will be 35, that's going to be 45, 55, 65, and then 75. And then we're going to do midpoint times the frequency. And we're going to add all of that up, and then we're going to divide by 105. So the estimated mean, right, is going to equal 25 times, let's write it a bit bigger. So 25 times 29 plus 35 times 28 plus 45 times 21 plus 55 times 15 plus, we'll go on to the next line, 65 times 10 and plus 75 times 2. And then that's going to be divided by 105. And that's going to give us an answer of 40,71. Now let's take a look at question number 3. In the Cartesian plane below, A, B, C, and D are points on a quadrilateral. Question 3.1, determine the coordinates of R, the midpoint of AC. So 3.1, to calculate R, so AC, so R is going to be somewhere, that's a terrible line, let's redo that. So R is going to be somewhere here, I'm assuming. So to calculate the midpoint, you're simply going to add up the x values divided by 2 and add up the y values divided by 2. So minus 3 plus 2 divided by 2, so midpoint, and then 0 minus 1 divided by 2. So minus 3 plus 2 is negative 1, negative 1 divided by 2 is negative a half, and then minus 1 divided by 2 is minus a half. So the coordinate for R is going to be minus a half and minus a half. Next, calculate the gradient of the line AB. So 3.2. To calculate the gradient of AB, we're going to say, well, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'm going to do 2 minus 0 divided by 0 minus 3. And that's going to equal 2 over 3. Question 3.3, calculate the length of AC. So the length of AC is going to equal the square root of x2 minus x1, so minus 3 minus 2 all squared, plus y2 minus y1, so 0 minus 1, so 0 plus 1 all squared. And that's going to give us an answer of square root, that's going to be 1, that's going to be 5 squared, so square root of 26. You can write that in decimal form, but it's not required. Question 3.4, if ABCD is a rhombus, calculate the area of ABCD. So ABCD, this entire shape here. So that is a rhombus. Calculate the area. So to calculate the area, we first will need one length, because remember, to calculate the area, you need a side, right? So let's go ahead. Let's calculate the length of. Okay, so there's some things that we need to decide on here. So we can calculate the length of AB, right? And the length of AB will equal the length of BC and CD and so on. But what would be more useful, because remember we want to calculate the area, we should calculate the length of this BR, right? And the reason why we should calculate the length of BR is because one of the properties of a rhombus is that the diagonals bisect at 90 degrees. So in other words, AC will be perpendicular to BR. So that's going to be 90 degrees. And actually, if you extend this, that's also going to be 90 degrees there. Now, why does that matter? Why is that useful? Because if I want to work out the area of the shape, I can work out the area of the triangle. So I can work out the area of this triangle right here using half base times height. And I can simply multiply it by 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and calculate the length of BR. So BR is going to equal the square root of x2 minus x1, so 0 minus a half, well 0 plus a half because it's minus minus all squared, plus 2 minus a half, so that's plus a half all squared. And that gives us BR a length of square root 26 over 2. So this has a length of square root, let me use a different color, square root 26 over 2. And we know the length of AC, we worked it out, the length of AC, this whole thing here has a length of the square root of 26. So I can calculate the area of that blue triangle. So the area of the blue triangle is going to be, so area of the blue triangle is going to equal half base times height. So half, the base is square root 26 and multiplied by the height, it's perpendicular height, so square root 26 over 2. Now if we want to calculate the area of the whole shape, all we need to do is multiply, so area of A, B, C, D, we're going to multiply this by 2, and that's going to give us an answer of 13 units squared. So question number 4 says, if 4 tan theta is equal to -3 and cos theta is positive, without using a calculator, determine the value of. Now what we need to do here is to use a diagram. So let's rearrange this. So tan theta is equal to -3 divided by 4. Now, if we recall our cast diagram, CAST, they tell us that cos theta is positive. So cos is positive in this quadrant here. That means that all the other trig ratios are going to be negative. So the quadrant that we're looking for is going to be this fourth quadrant. So if I'm going to draw in our triangle, the triangle is going to look something like that. That's going to be my 90 degrees. That's going to be theta right there. Then tan theta is equal to minus 3 over 4. So remember, tan is opposite over adjacent. So opposite over adjacent. So opposite of theta, this is going to be negative 3. And adjacent to theta, this is going to be 4. Now that is a 3, 4, 5 triangle. You can use Pythagoras to calculate the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is going to be 5. It's important to note that whenever you are calculating the hypotenuse should always be positive. Now question 4.1 says, calculate the value of sine theta. So sine theta is going to equal opposite over hypotenuse, so negative 3 divided by 5. Question 4.2, 10 cos squared theta, so 10, and then cos theta is going to be 4 over 5, so 4 over 5 squared, and that's going to simplify as 10 multiplied by 16 over 25, and that's going to equal 160 over 25. So this is simply going to become, it'll simplify as 160 over 25, which is then 32 over 5. Question 4.3, 3 cot theta. Now remember that cot theta is the reciprocal of tan. So cot theta is equal to 1 over tan theta. So let's do some substitution here. So 3 into, now remember tan theta was minus 3 over 4. So 1 over tan theta is going to be minus 4 over 3. Then we are adding sine theta, so plus 5, and sine theta was minus 3 over 5. Now it's a matter of simplifying a bit here. So the 3 and the 3 here will cancel, so you have minus 4. You have the 5 and the 5 here are going to cancel, so minus 3. And so that answer is then minus 7. So question 5. In each of the following equations, solve for x where x is between 0 and 90 degrees. Give your answers correct to 2 decimal places. So question 5.1.1, cos x equals 2 over 3. We'll take the cos across, so it's going to become arc cos, or simply on your calculator, you press the shift button and then the cos button. So x is going to equal cos or arc cos 2 over 3, which is equal to 48,19 degrees. Question 5.1.2, we have 4 over cot x plus 1 equals 3. Now I'm going to try and simplify as much as possible before I solve. So I'm going to take the 1 across. I'm going to have 4 over cot x is equal to 3 minus 1, which is 2. I can switch the cot x and the 2 now. So 4 over 2 is equal to cot x. 4 over 2 is equal to 2, and that's equal to, cot is the reciprocal of tan, so 1 over tan x. Now switch the tan x and the 2, we have tan x equals half. Now we can solve for x. X is equal to shift tan or arc tan 1 over 2, which is equal to 26,57 degrees. Now taking a look at question 5.2, simplify fully without the use of a calculator. Now what we need to do here is we need to recall our special angles. So tan of 45 degrees, that's simply going to be 1. Then cosec of 60. So cosec is the reciprocal of sine. So that's simply going to be 1 or multiplied by 1 over sine of 60 degrees. And then that's divided by Cot of 30 again is the reciprocal of tan, so 1 over tan 30 and multiplied by cos squared 45. So cos 45 is square root 2 over 2, and that is squared. Now it's just a matter of simplifying. So you have 1 multiplied by 1 over sine of 60. Sine of 60 is square root 3 over 2. So 1 over square root 3 over 2 is going to be 2 over square root 3. And then that's divided by tan of 30 is 1 over square root 3. So 1 over tan 30 is simply going to be square root 3. And then that's going to be multiplied by square root 2 all squared is simply 2 over, and that's going to be 4. Now it's a matter of simplifying here. So we're going to have 2 over square root 3 divided by, and here we're going to have 2 square root 3 over 4. Now we need to tip in times here. So 2 over square root 3 multiplied by 4 over 2 square root 3. That's going to simplify. The 2 will and the 2 will cancel. We're going to have 4 over square root 3 times square root 3 is 3. Now taking a look at question 5.3. If x is equal to 56,3 and y is equal to 97,5, evaluate the following correct to 2 decimal places. So here it's just a matter of substituting. So 5.3.1, you're going to have cos of 56.3 plus 97.5, and that's going to equal, well, that's going to equal, let's check, cos of 153,6, which is equal to minus 0,90. Question 5.3.2. Here we're going to substitute. We'll say 2 sine squared, and here we have x, so x is 56,3, and then we're subtracting 2 from there, divided by cos, and y is 97,5, and that's going to equal 4,72. Now let's move on. Question number 6. The graphs of f of x is equal to p sine x, and g of x equals cos x plus q for x is between 0 and 360 are sketched below. So question 6.1, determine the values of p and q. So p is this value and q is this value. The value for p is going to be the value or the factor that is being multiplied by sine x that is affecting its amplitude. So sine x is going to be this graph here. So let's just highlight it there. So if you're looking at that blue graph, the blue graph has a maximum height of 2. So that means the amplitude is 2. So the value for p is going to be 2. Then if you're looking at the q value is going to be the value that is going to affect the vertical shift of the graph. So cos x has been shifted either up or down, and the q value is the value that it's being shifted by. Now, to figure this out, we need to consider what value a cos graph normally starts at. So a cos graph normally starts at 1, so we need to know that. But instead, this cos graph is starting at 2. In other words, it's been shifted 1 up. So the q value is going to be plus 1. Question 6.2. Write down the amplitude of g. So to calculate the amplitude of any graph, it's simply going to be amplitude is equal to maximum minus minimum divided by 2. So the maximum of g is 2, the minimum is 0 divided by 2, and so the amplitude is 1. Question 6.3, write down the range of f. Now the range are those y values that the graph or the function of f is going to exist between. So the range of f is simply going to be y is going to exist between -2 and 2. Question 6.4, for which values of x will f of x be greater than 0? So what we're looking for here is, where is the graph of f, the blue graph, where is it above the x-axis? Where is it positive? So it's positive all over here. All here, it's positive. So, and the x values is going to be between 0 and 180. So x must be between 0 and 180. Now I haven't included the equal sign because the question did not include the equal sign there. Now question 6.5 is asking, the graph of g, so the cost graph, is reflected about the x-axis and then shifted 2 units upward to obtain the graph of h. Write down the equation of h. So let's start with g of x. So g of x is going to equal cos x plus 1. Now they tell us it's reflected about the x-axis. So let's start with this. Y is equal to cos x plus 1. If you are reflecting it on the x-axis, you keep the x, you change the y value. So this is the y value. So y is going to equal, so the first change, it's going to be minus into cos x plus 1. So that simplifies as minus cos x minus 1. Then the second change, it shifted 2 units upward. So y, and the second change, let's just put it here. So if you are shifting it 2 units upward, you're going to add 2 to this value. So it's going to be minus cos x, and then minus 1 plus 2 is going to be plus 1. And that's going to be our solution. Now let's take a look at question number 7. In the diagram below, ABCD is a rectangle, DC is equal to 155 centimeters and DE is 800 centimeters. The angle of elevation from D to E is 22 degrees. Question 7.1, excuse me, calculate the length of BE. So BE is this entire thing here. So 7.1, BE is going to equal BA plus AE, right? And since they tell us that ABCD is a rectangle, it means that AB is also going to equal 155. So 155 plus. Now to figure out what AE is, let's consider this triangle. Now this is going to be a right angle triangle, and so we can use trigonometry to figure out the length of AE. Since we know the angle and we know this, which is the hypotenuse, we can use sine to figure out what AE is. So we'll say that sine of 22 degrees is going to equal AE divided by the hypotenuse, which is 800. So we can then rearrange. We'll say 800 multiplied by sine of 22 degrees is equal to AE. AE is therefore equal to 299,69. We can then substitute this, so 299,69, and so BE is going to equal 454,69 centimeters. Now question 7.2, determine the distance BC. So BC is this length right here, and that's going to equal the length of AD. So BC is going to equal AD, and we can figure out the length of AD by using Pythagoras, or you can use trigonometry. So I'm going to use trig. You can use Pythagoras, it'll still work. So I know the hypotenuse and AD is the adjacent side. So I'm going to use cos. So I'll say cos of 22 degrees is going to equal AD divided by 800. So 800 multiplied by cos 22 is going to equal 741,75, which is AD. And since AD is equal to BC, this is equal to BC. Now let's take a look at question 8. A metal marble has a diameter of 16 millimeters. So they then tell us the formula for volume. Volume is equal to 4 over 3 pi r cubed, and that's for a sphere. Question 8.1. Calculate the volume of metal used to make this marble. Give your answer correct to 2 decimal places. So the volume is equal to 4 over 3 pi, and they give us the diameter. If the diameter is 16, it means the radius is going to be half of that. The radius is going to be 8. So 8 to the power of 3. And 2 decimal places, the answer is going to be 2144,66. And that's millimeters cubed since it's volume. Question 8.2. If the radius of the marble is doubled, write down the ratio of the new volume to the original volume. So what we can do here is, let's work out the new volume. So the new volume is going to equal 4/3 pi, and they double the radius. So if the radius was 8, the radius is now going to be 16, so 16 cubed, and that's going to give us an answer of 17157,28. That's millimeters cubed. So they want to know what is the change. So we'll say 17157,28 divided by the original 2144,66, and that's equal to roughly 8/1. So it's 8 times larger, right? Now, of course, there is a different way that you could do it. You could just focus purely on the ratio between the two things. So you could say, or you could say the volume of the original, they want new to original. So volume of the new to the volume of the original, that's going to be 4/3 pi and then 16 cubed to 4/3 pi, and that's 8 cubed. Now, because it's a ratio, these are the same, so that will disappear. And so what we have then is the ratio of 16 cubed to 8 cubed, which is essentially 8:1. Both work. Now let's take a look at question number 9. In quadrilateral WXYZ, WZ is parallel to XY and angle X is equal to angle Z. They then tell us prove that WXYZ is a parallelogram. So the first thing we're going to do here is we'll say that in triangle WXY and triangle YZW. So I'm focusing on this triangle here. So that's triangle 1 and triangle 2. So I know that WY is common. So WY is common. I also know that W2 is equal to Y1, and that's alternate angles. They tell us that WZ is parallel to XY. Now I'm referring to the Z shape that I'm seeing here. So it means that this angle is equal to this angle right here. And then lastly, they tell us that angle X is equal to angle Z. So angle X is equal to angle Z. And that was given to us. And so we can then conclude that triangle WXY is going to be congruent to triangle YZW. And that's because of angle, side. Now, because these triangles are going to be congruent, we can then conclude that XY, so this side here, is going to equal that side there. So therefore, XW is going to equal ZY, and WZ is going to equal XY. And so therefore, that shape is going to be a parallelogram. So we can say WXYZ is a parallelogram, and the reason is one pair of opposite sides are equal and parallel. Now let's take a look at question 9.2. Question 9.2, in the sketch below, ABCD is a parallelogram. DC is equal to DE, okay, that's given, and A is equal to 120 degrees. So this is 120 degrees. Question 9.2.1 says calculate the size of angle B. So because this is a parallelogram, this is going to be parallel to that, and so there is a letter U there. So we can say that angle A plus angle B is going to equal 180 degrees, and that's because they are co-interior angles. AD is parallel to BC. Now A is 120, so B is going to equal 180 minus 120, which is 60 degrees. So that's going to be 60 degrees. Now question 9.2.1b. So B. Question says calculate C2. So in order to calculate C2, we can calculate C1 first. So C1 is going to equal 120 degrees. And that's because the opposite angles in a parallelogram are equal. So opposite angles in a parallelogram. So this is going to be 120 degrees. So if that's 120 degrees, C1 and C2 exist on a straight line. So that must mean that C2 must be 60. So C1 plus C2 is equal to 180. So that's angles on a straight line. That means C2 is going to equal 180 minus 120, which is equal to 60 degrees. Of course, you could do it this way. You could say that here is the letter F, and so these are then corresponding angles, so that will be 60 degrees. I think that will be the easiest solution. So you'll say that C2 is equal to 60 degrees. Corresponding angles, we'll say then that AB is parallel to CD. Now question 9.2.2 says if D2 is equal to 4x, calculate the value of x. Okay, so this question seems more difficult than it actually is, because if we focus on this triangle here, right, we've been given some information that's going to help us out. So this triangle, let me just redraw it here, that's 60 degrees, and that's equal to that, and that's equal to 4x. So this is an isosceles triangle, and it means that this angle here must be 60, right? Because these are angles that are opposite equal sides. So we'll start by saying angle E is equal to 60 degrees, and it's because angles opposite equal sides. Now we can use some angles in a triangle. We can say that D2 plus C2 plus E is equal to 180, and that's some angles in a triangle. Now D2 is 4x, and C2 and E are 60 each, so that's plus 120, and that's going to equal 180. So 4x is going to equal 180 minus 120, which is 60. That means x is going to equal 60 divided by 4, which is 15 degrees. And now the last question of the paper, question number 10. Triangle XYZ is right angled at Y. F and G are the midpoints of XZ and YZ respectively. H is the midpoint of XG. E lies on XY such that FHE is a straight line. So question 10.1 says, prove that E is the midpoint of XY. So here, I think it's quite clear that we are going to need to use midpoint theorem, right? And we'll start off with this triangle right here. Now we are given that XF, so this is equal to this. And further, we are given that this is equal to this. That means that HF must be parallel to GZ, right? So let's start by writing it out. So we'll say XF is equal to FZ, and XH is equal to HG. And we know this because it was given to us. So we can say, therefore, the line HF must be parallel to the line GZ. Now, because HF is parallel to GZ, it means that EF must be parallel to YZ. And that's because these are straight lines, right? So these are straight lines. Okay, so we've got that this is also parallel to that. Now, if we focus on this other triangle here, so this triangle right here that I'm highlighting, we are then looking at XH, we're looking at HG, and we're looking at the lines that are parallel. So because XH is equal to HG, and because EH is parallel to YG, and we've said this before, this is proven, we can then conclude that XE is going to equal EY, and that's going to be converse midpoint theorem, right? Or you could say that it's going to be the line through the midpoint that is parallel to the second side, right? And then therefore we can conclude that E is the midpoint. So this here is going to equal that there. Now take a look at question 10.2. Question says, if EH is 3.5 centimeters, so if that's 3.5, and the area of triangle HEX, so HEX is equal to 9.5 centimeters squared, calculate the length of XY. So XY is this entire length right there. Okay, not a problem. So we know that this is going to be 90 degrees because XG is parallel to EH. So we'll start with that. We'll say that E is equal to 90 degrees, and that is corresponding angles. And we know that EH is parallel to YG. Now we can use the area formula. We know that area of a triangle is equal to half base times height. The area is 9.5 centimeters squared. That's half. The base is 3.5, and then multiplied by the height. Now we want the height. Remember, the height is XE. So the height, which is XE, is going to equal half times 3.5, and then 9.5 divided by that answer. So that's going to equal 5,43 centimeters. So if this is 5,43 centimeters, and we already said that E is the midpoint, then this must be 5,43 as well. Therefore, we can say that XY is going to equal 2 times 5,43, which is equal to 10,86 centimeters. Lastly, question 10.3, hence calculate the area of triangle XYZ. So they want us to calculate the area of this entire big triangle here. So X, Y, Z. Okay, so what we need then is we need to calculate, or we've got the height. So let me just sketch this out for us. So here, we know that this is 90 degrees. This is 10,86. And we need to figure out then what the base is going to be. Okay, but we can use midpoint theorem. So because we know that this is 3,5, right? And because of midpoint theorem, this base is going to be double it. This is going to be 7. right? Then they tell us that YG, they tell us here that YG is equal to GZ. So if that is 7, that's going to be 7. So this is going to be 14. So now we can calculate the area. The area is equal to half of 14 times 10,86, and that's going to equal 76 centimeters squared. And that's the whole video, that's the whole paper. If you stuck around to the end, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe for more. I'll see you in the next one.